Adam, the White Hair Master. Season 2. Episode 25. Looking at his subordinate's panicked expression, Brian guessed that someone had been injured. But when he heard clearly what the subordinate said, Brian knew that no one was injured. Turns out the excavator driver had just dug a coffin. Digging into a coffin took Brian quite by surprise, because before starting construction, his company had thoroughly surveyed this land. Absolutely no graves were discovered. Brian immediately ran to the place where the coffin was discovered. Also, according to his subordinates, there were many people gathered there at this time, most of them gathered together out of curiosity. It's not uncommon to dig a coffin in a construction site. Usually, such cases will bring a lot of trouble. Therefore, not only his subordinates but even Brian himself felt nervous when faced with this case. A few minutes later, Brian was where the coffin was discovered. He began to observe to assess the situation. This coffin is located very deep underground. From the state of the broken pieces of wood, Brian quickly recognized that this coffin had been buried for a long time. Another feature that caught his attention was the quality of the coffin. The type of wood and thickness of the coffin can tell that its owner is a person who is not very well off. Before deciding to handle this matter, Brian called to report the situation here to his manager. After talking for a while, Brian and his manager agreed on how to solve the problem. It's not uncommon to dig up an abandoned coffin on a construction site. Hence, construction companies often deal with this on their own to avoid trouble. After hanging up, Brian immediately told his subordinates to get him a clean bag. With the bag in hand, Brian slowly slid down the pit where the coffin was. At first, some subordinates suggested to Brian to leave it to them, but Brian refused. He said that he is the team leader, so he will do this. But actually, Brian has another purpose. Usually, graves like this will have some valuable items buried along, so Brian wants to take advantage of this opportunity, maybe find some treasure. But as soon as he looked inside the coffin, Brian had to let out a sigh of disappointment. What was in front of him was completely different from what he had imagined before. The reason Brian was so disappointed was that there was almost nothing inside the coffin. Inside there is only a skeleton with a strange posture and a memorial cloth. Not even the clothes of the master's grave. Brian couldn't tell if this person was an adult or still a child looking at the skeleton. But now there is no regret or disappointment. Nothing can be done. Brian's main job is to collect the remains of the dead to be buried elsewhere. Brian began to crawl inside the coffin to do what he needed to do after taking a deep breath. As a reasonably courageous person, what was in front of him did not frighten Brian at all. But somehow, as soon as Brian took the skull in his hand, he immediately had the feeling that from within the two black sockets of the skull, two eyes were staring at him. This made Brian shiver. After collecting the remains in the coffin, Brian packed the whole shroud in one place to avoid bad things from curious people. Brian instructed a subordinate to find a new burial place for the skeleton. Those were also the last things Brian could remember. From that moment to when he was awakened by Adam, Brian completely remembered nothing. After listening to Brian's story, Adam smiled and said that this was entirely within his ability to handle. But first, Adam wants Brian to take him to the place where he buried the skeleton first. Overjoyed, Brian immediately agreed. He wanted to use his car to take Adam, but Adam refused. So Brian drove ahead to guide Sarah and Adam. In the car, Sarah began to ask about what Brian had just told her. She still didn't understand the seriousness of this. To Sarah's question, Adam said that this is not complicated at all. It is simply a hungry ghost. This person may have died of starvation, or there was no worshipper to have such a situation after death. Now just helping him to fill his stomach can solve the problem. On the way, Adam tells Sarah to find a convenience store where he can buy some essentials. After buying everything he needed, Adam continued to get in the car. He followed Brian to where he buried the skeleton. It turned out that what Adam bought were a goat head, a pig head, and a roast duck. He placed all of the above in front of the grave where Brian had buried the skeleton. After presenting the food in front of the tomb, Adam took out 3 incense sticks from his pocket and lit them. But the incense sticks burned not long before they were simultaneously extinguished. Foresaw this, so Adam didn't show any surprise. Adam understood that this ghost did not accept what he had brought. Seeing that, Adam immediately spoke to comfort it. Adam said he didn't know why it died and became a hungry ghost, but being a wandering spirit is no good. Adam advised it to accept his offerings, eat a full meal, and go to reincarnation. That was the most satisfying ending he could help it with. After he had said all his sincere confidence to the ghost, Adam put 2 fingers together and brought them close to the 3 incense sticks. With a very gentle movement, Adam rekindled the fire on 3 incense sticks. Looking at this action of Adam, Sarah and Brian couldn't help but admire the ability of this young wizard. After the incense sticks are relit, they have not extinguished again. Only then did Adam gently stand up. Sarah was also now approaching behind Adam. She wanted to know the outcome of the negotiation. Still silent, Adam simply nodded his head to indicate that everything had gone smoothly. Standing next to Adam, Sarah couldn't help but wonder how the ghost could eat what Adam brought. Feeling that this was quite difficult to explain, Adam could only put his finger on Sarah's forehead, then he mumbled something that Sarah couldn't hear. As soon as Adam finished reading the chant, Sarah could see what was happening in front of her. While this isn't the first time Sarah has seen strange things while working with Adam, but what she was seeing made her wince. In front of Sarah now is the image of a bizarre ghost. True to the name of the hungry ghost, this ghost's body is skinny. In addition to the fact that it did not have a piece of cloth to cover its body, its appearance became even more strange. Along with the body, this hungry ghost's face is much scarier than its body. At this time was using his sharp teeth to bite the pig's head. Pieces of flesh and bone were torn off by it and chewed voraciously. Seeing that the scene was not very pleasant, Adam slowly withdrew his hand. As soon as Adam withdrew his hand, everything in front of Sarah returned to normal as if nothing had happened. But there is one point that makes Sarah pay attention: the pig's head placed on the ground. Although she had seen the ghost devour the pig's head, it was still in its original position for now. It's just that now it looks like it's been a few days, completely different from how delicious it was when Adam brought it here. According to Adam, after eating, the ghost disappeared, proving that it had achieved its wish and started reincarnating. Turning to Brian, Adam told him to be careful when dealing with things like this. When faced with a similar situation, call a qualified person to deal with it. Before Adam's instructions, Brian repeatedly said thank you and promised that he would not forget the words Adam just said. After settling everything, Brian wanted to give some money to Adam, but he refused. Seeing this, Sarah took the money and gave it to Adam. She said that this was his effort, so there was nothing to be afraid of holding this money. While Adam and Sarah were preparing to get in the car to return home, a voice suddenly came from behind Adam. The person who came was a man. He kept asking Adam to help him solve something. Turns out the man had accidentally seen Adam deal with the matter. Seeing that Adam could help him, the man ran to meet Adam. According to him, his son is having a problem, and only Adam can solve it.